let's do a little introduction, and I will combine the first two questions. Maybe we start with Miguel. Introduce yourself, your company, and we are interested to know the percentage of mortgages being initiated and closed online. It's 2 steps, right?
Thank you. Yeah, Michiel Goris. I've been CEO of Interhyp long time, last 7 years. I gave over to my successor, 1st of April. Very happy to be at NOAH. We are from 1999, so we already survived 2 crises. Stock listed 2005, 2008, ING bought the majority. I joined.
For 600 million or
400 million?
400 million.
400 million, so not too bad if you look nowadays. And we did last year 18 billion of business. And
that's mortgage volume.
That's mortgage volume, 18 billion in 2016. And to answer your question from the related to online, online only is still very, very small. We started like that for a few weeks, and then we added phone. And we have added 110 locations and 1,600 employees over time, because people still want to talk, for sure in Germany, to somebody.
And how many mortgages? What's the percentage of mortgages in Germany now being closed online or initiated online?
I think that the kind of the modern brokers in Germany have 15 to 20% of the market, and 80% of the market is still with traditional banks, partly brought by traditional brokers that kind of hand over the client.
20% in Germany right now. Can you disclose your profits? I think you're...
Yeah, 68 million last year.
68 million. So ING did a good deal, thanks to you.
I'm happy. ING is also happy, I think.
Okay, Omer, let's go to Turkey. Yeah. What is the situation in Turkey?
Well, we were founded in 2010, so it's been 7 years. We initially were focused exclusively on mortgages.
A bit louder, I think it is.
We were focused on mortgages exclusively at first, but now we've...
So you focus on mortgages first and then?
Yes, then we expanded our focus into different banking lines and now insurance as well. The Turkish population is obviously very young and they're adaptable to technology, so I would guess close to 40% of all mortgages are researched online, and 10% of mortgages which are closed are initiated online. We see about half of those, 3 to 5% of online applications through our platform in Turkey.
So you have like a 50% market share of 10% market closed online?
I would say, yes, okay. I would say so.
So 20% in Germany, 10% in Turkey. Hervé, you have also been coming many times to NOAH. Very happy about that.
Thank you.
You've done a deal, I think, recently. Maybe yes. You can talk a bit about Meileurtaux.
Oh, yes. We are the leading mortgage loan broker in France. Started back in 1999, so a long time ago. And we have
like Interhyp.
Like Interhyp and Mutri as well. But then the company went into some troubles and difficulties. We recovered from there.
There was a .com bubble bust, right?
Yes, everything went bad and then everything went well after that. We are the largest player on the French market. We started as a pure online player, completely online player, and then since then we have turned into a full comparison site. So we have now become a bit of a cross between Interhyp and Check24, because we are both a full retail financial products comparison site and a mortgage loan broker. And we are really a mix of online and offline, because we have also 265 franchise branches all throughout the country. So we are a very hybrid web and
branch. So not only you started in the same year, you also added retail locations
yes.
to the distribution.
But franchise branches, not own branches, franchise branches.
Yeah, you want to keep them motivated, right?
Absolutely. Entrepreneurial. And it's about 8 billion euro volume of mortgage loans, but we have also consumer loans and insurance and savings products, so the full range.
And what's the percentage you think in France of mortgages being sold online?
I would say it's less than 10%. I mean,
less than
brokers intermediate about 30% of mortgage production, and we are by far the largest player online, but we are both online and offline. So we play the 2 games.
The direct share for the mortgage provider is something like 60%.
Direct, yes, 60% to 70% direct through the banks, basically, okay. Yes.
Marco, how is it in Italy? We also know each other for a long time.
Well, no, it's getting better, and well, we started in Italy back then in 2000 and we actually introduced mortgage broking to the country. And our model is an online comparison model that generates qualified leads for bank branches or online banks. We don't really have physical distribution apart from a wholesale physical broker. And I would say Italy has a few online banks that provide mortgages directly through the internet with telephone support, and they account for, say, 5% or a bit more of the market. Instead, if you look at online brokers, I mean online origination, you get between 5 and 10% depending on the product. The share is higher for remortgages.
And the offline brokerage business?
It's around 15 to 20%, but you go to an offline broker not for the choice today in Italy. It's more about being able to get a loan when you wouldn't normally be eligible for one. So it's a completely different segment. And
but it sounds like similar to the French market. Then.
Possibly. No, I think, we looked at France years ago, and I think France is probably a bit more transparent for the physical part.
Okay. So Tom, how is it in Holland?
We started much later, 5 years ago, and the company is called Viisi. I'm one of 4 co-founders, and we started when the regulation changed. So there was
you started with what?
When the regulation changed in the Netherlands. So the regulator decided to change the model, and the client pays for an advice fee, and we are not allowed to take money from the banks. So there's no margin in the mortgage anymore. And
so
then
who
we
is
decided
paying you?
The client. So the client only fee-based advice. So it's
for
very
a
transparent.
€100,000 mortgage, what would be the fee?
No, it was in the past the average mortgage was €300,000, and then you got 1% of the bank, and then the model changed, and then it started that the advice fee was exactly the same amount, and then we calculated it and said, okay, let's do for half of it, changing the model, and started as a specialized broker focusing on graduates. It's a little bit like, for people who know the American market, SoFi, focusing on graduates, and that's where we start to develop a niche market share, and then from there on we will become broader.
Okay.
But still very small. So half a billion, and the whole market is 80 billion, and it's a broker market. 80% is done by brokers.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about marketing, because it's getting more and more expensive to acquire customers online. Google's prices go up. Maybe who of you has done television advertising? Hands up. In Holland, it's a question of size, or?
No, we decided to start really focusing on happy clients. So we only did last 5 years.
How can they be happy when they pay 1% in advisory fee?
No, they pay 0.5%.
0.5%.
And we were, on the one hand, we had the best quality because all the consultants have an academic background, which is exceptional. So they all studied. The clients have the same background. So the clients are very happy because they get the best advice for the lowest price. And then we got referrals.
And you have, maybe to remind the audience, so who has retail outlets in the market? Okay. Has this been, you think, a driving force for the brand building? Or what is the main reason to have the offline research, online buying process?
Yeah, we have done quite some testing there, and we found out that the conversion is much higher. The closer you're to the client, the higher the conversion. So with phone.
Is it good for the trust building also?
Trust building. It's far better for referrals. You're close to the client. We started with 30 own locations. Now we have added 80 locations in kind of a franchise model. So 110 locations in total, roughly 30 kilometers away from the client. And that's very important for our clients to at least see once the advisor in person.
Is that in France the same?
It's not quite the same. Our brand is by far the most well-known in France for retail financial products, starting with mortgage loans. What we see is that the main contributor to the brand, to the visibility, is actually the website for us. We have more than 40 million visits a year on the website. The branches, although we have 265, they are not quite visible. We will need to get to 500 before they really become visible. So they are contributing to the bottom line and to revenues, but they are not really contributing to the visibility yet. It's really the website, and it's the brand image, which is the prime driver.
So Marco, we learned earlier from Andre, from Badu, that if you have great products and a great service offering, you don't need to do any marketing. How did you build your business? What was the marketing which really made a difference to the growth of your business over the last years?
Well, I think that for our online mortgage broking business, this is actually the recipe. We started long ago providing a much better service than anybody else in the market, and still, and that's the way we built our reputation. So we are getting a lot of free traffic, we are getting a lot of referrals, and so it's in a sense the service that sells itself, also the reputation that we have. Of course, we also do online marketing, but now it operates at break-even. It's more a barrier to entry than an opportunity to acquire new business. And for mortgages, for instance, we don't do television, we do it for other products. For insurance, it works. For mortgages, the return is too low.
So what works for you for mortgages? How do you acquire your leads?
I mean, I wouldn't say that we just wait for them to come, but the reality is we do everything that is efficient, but there are not so many things to generate additional business volumes that are efficient. So again, it's what works, for instance, is PR activity. It is, again, referrals. It's providing a good service and so on, but that's not open to every player. It's,
right. And I don't remember any segment like yours which has a better strategy on the PR side. And maybe you can raise your hands if you provide on a regular basis interest rates updates to journalists.
Yeah, we do.
And has this been an important factor for building a brand, maybe in Turkey?
Actually, our strategy has been to provide great content to consumers. So we are the consumer's champion in terms of all kinds of personal financial products. We do lots of different calculation tools as well, and even for tax payments and what happens when you sell your house and how do you pay your taxes. All kinds of high quality content we put online. And actually that creates a great buzz around our brand, and actually lots of great conversations on our site, which is additional content, which drives free traffic as well.
Let's talk a little bit about your supply, the brands. I think the consumer goods industry is paranoid to lose its customers to Amazon. The financial institutions are paranoid to lose their customers to Money Supermarket and Check24. You are a vertical players, and I would say in the lead gen business for consumer finance, the oldest and probably the most established vertical, which is independent. The insurance and the lending things, they started a little bit later. What do you tell the banks when it comes to who is owning the customer?
Yeah, the good news for all of us is that all banks are looking for assets. They have a lot of money around, savings money that has to be invested. So they're looking for assets. So we just tell them it's our client, and you can put them on the balance sheet. And that client can then be cross-sold, especially in our case.
And is that working in practice also?
I think in general banks are not very good at cross-selling.
They're very good. When I closed recently a mortgage in Spain, in the small print there was like, if you don't take a credit card, if you don't take a life insurance, if you don't have standing orders, if you don't have a home, all these like conditions, and the rate was suddenly like 1% higher. I said, what's this? And then they showed me. So the cross-selling happens a lot faster and earlier sometimes.
So I think you needed an advisor to help you there.
I think I needed a translator in Spanish.
But I think, Marco, that the banks really realize that customers come to us first. If you look at the French market, roughly 40 to 50% of all French households with a real estate project come to us.
Yeah, but
it's
in
a reality.
the extreme case, I mean, if you get a customer to a mortgage provider and then he wants to remortgage.
Yes.
And then you provide the tools to check. Are they forbidding you to reapproach the customer once the deal is closed?
Oh, no. No, they can't. Well, we try to avoid proactively marketing aggressively to these customers.
But
then
if they come to you, it's okay.
they come to you because we have 40 million visits a year, so they all come to us anyway.
40 million visitors?
Yes, a year. 40.
And how many users are behind there? I didn't know there are so many mortgages needed in France.
No, but people come to me, they come for the rest. I mean, they come for the other product, consumer loans and insurance and so on and so forth. But the fact is, I think in all of our markets, when you look at the Google universe of searches for financial products, the most searched product on Google is actually mortgage in most markets in Europe. Before savings, before insurance, I mean, the two most searched products on Google are mortgage loans and car insurance. So if you are sitting there and if you are providing first-class information, people come to you. And our bank partners have got to deal with that. It's a reality.
Tom, how is it looking with you and the providers? Did you ever have a tough meeting with the mortgage?
No, because the Dutch market always has been a broker market. So also because of the regulation, the client has to pay for the advice. And the problem for the banks is that if the client comes to a bank, the client knows that he will only get one option, the mortgage of that bank. So the banks are very happy to get the mortgage volume and they don't have to pay any retail costs for that. So let's say from a logical point of view, they can close their own retail outlets and only be product providers. But I would like to add something about a strategy. We're a little bit different, so we said, okay, let's try to focus on niches. We started with those graduates, but for instance, we also launched the other vertical for expats, because there are a lot of high educated expats in the Netherlands, and trying to do it segment by segment. And then finding, let's say, also with this long tail strategy to be found. And that's something which is quite successful and nobody does.
Right.
But let's say, we'll see what happens in the future, because the banks, on the one hand, they like it because they don't have any acquisition costs, and on the other hand, they don't know the customer anymore.
So they know it also in the offline brokerage, right?
Yeah, but they even send clients to us, the banks, and say, okay, please go to Viisi, because they are specialized on certain topics, and
nice.
they even don't care if we don't bring them
you're
to
good
that
for
bank.
them. And if you look at the supply, are there any suppliers where you say, these guys are not yet on my platform? Who's missing suppliers on, or who would love to have some more?
Yes, we, on the banking side, I would say pretty much everyone worked with us. Maybe one bank accepted, but out of 120 banks on the French market, we all got them, basically. It's more complicated on the insurance side. On the insurance side, on the P&C insurance side, that it's a market we entered 1 year ago now. We see some insurance company who says, I don't want to go on a comparison panel because I saw what happened in the UK. I'm seeing what's happening to some extent in Germany as well. So I'm very protective of that. And I want to retain a hold on distribution. So it's a more difficult discussion on the insurance side. It's progressing, but it's slower.
And what we would like is that the banks also get more online, get more streamlined processes, less documentation.
But you close the transaction online, or do you need to go to a branch in order to sign the contract?
It depends on the banks. At least for us, it depends on the banks. Some banks are very advanced there.
Maybe you can answer all of you. Tom, what's the split? How much you close online versus you still have to do some offline work?
Everything is closed offline because nearly anybody who closes online. That's also a point for the regulation. So the suppliers, they fear that they will be responsible for the advice. So it's a little bit more complicated. So you have the value chain, and certain parts of the value chain are automized, and we only have one conversation or consult at the end, and that still makes sense because we have 50% conversion. So we'll see in future what will happen with the other parts which are not automized yet.
How is it in Italy, Mark?
Well, what we do is just to qualify the leads, and then we put the people in touch with the bank, and like 3/4 of our volumes are with branch-based banks, and the rest are with online banks, but it's the interaction between the borrower and the lender, even if it's online.
Hervé, how many are you closing online versus offline?
For us,
Yeah, pure online.
I would say
like directly linked into the systems of the provider.
oh,
Because
direct.
that's what Interhyp is doing, right? I mean, you are directly into the system integrated.
We would love to do far more there. So
But you do,
very, very little. Because the banks are not really ready for those kind of modern processes.
are they not willing, not capable, or they just don't have the systems which comply with your technology?
I would say all of it.
All of it.
And it's the same, it's a mix. Sometimes they don't want to, sometimes they cannot. But I think it's moving. I think it's the same
It's
for
moving.
Tunisia. There is really a trend in the banks right now to streamline the process. And I think many of them, they are trying to get to the point where we do more and more of the job online, or on the phone, or remotely at least, and they spend less time running the process, which I think is good for all of us.
How
It's
do
good
you
for
deal with all the, like the reference documents? Or you have to submit a lot of papers, right, when you want a mortgage. Do you collect them online? Is there like a cloud service around it, or how does it work?
For us, traditionally we used to first of all, when we deal remotely on the phone, we don't get the paperwork. It's the bank that deals with it. And in the branches, we are getting to the point where we are doing it in a completely digital way, so people can download the documents and we can pass it on to the banks. And we are moving in that direction. I think everyone is moving that way. We are trying to get to the point where customers can actually download whatever documentation is needed, or we can access documentation and pass it on to the bank and inject it into their system with as little paper floating around as possible, going all the way to the e-signature. So what we saw earlier today with Mava and with Zopa, for instance, we are starting to do that with several banks to try to have the fully digital process with no paper floating around.
In Turkey too, the government is also driving digitization as well. So the whole title process is going to be digital in 2 or 3 years. So it's going to be opening the way for digital
So you
lenders.
get a lot of upside then from this
Yes.
improvement at your provider side.
Yeah.
So last question, Check24 and also Money Supermarket for that matter are gigantic consumer finance lead gen businesses. Are you worried that in Germany eventually they get their mortgage product better, or is there something which gives them a challenge for entry barriers to take more market share or take market share from Interhyp, for example?
I think with such big players, you always have to watch out. So you have to watch what they're doing. At the moment, you see that consumer loans is a product where they are much stronger. The whole trust part is still
So
very
they're more on
important.
the smaller transaction size.
Yeah, consumer loans, I think in most countries in Europe is already pretty digital, so you can really do it online within a few hours. Mortgages, most of the time, it's still taking a few days.
Because it's higher amounts and you have to send more references, I think, and documents.
That's one part, and then the other part is that the clients are still not willing to do the last click.
Yeah.
Now buy 200,000 euro, 1,000 euro for the next 30 years, a month. So it's the biggest thing they will buy ever as a household. So that's a big decision, and they still like to look people in the eyes and say, did I not make any mistake?
But Check24 versus Interhyp, do you know how much smaller they are to you?
Yeah, I would guesstimate that they max 1/10 of us in mortgages, but they are huge in other parts.
Yeah, but having the reference in the newspapers about being the platform to go helps, of course. In Italy, I think Facile, a company we both know, I think they have a mortgage product, but you are the clear market leader, I believe. Right?
Yes, and I think the issue is that there is limited cross-sell out of more general products like motor insurance or utilities into mortgages. This is also maybe because mortgages is a product where you really want to speak with a specialist, someone who can really trust. So we are not too concerned of this, and in fact, for us it's the opposite. We are developing and with some success, a platform like an aggregator with a number of products, starting from motor insurance, including loans and so on. So I don't think it should be a concern for any of us. I mean, not the
Have
most
you
serious
thought
one.
to offer online-only mortgages? Or I think yesterday we had a company on stage which, in the commercial real estate space, which enables like normal investors to come in and provide the funds for the mortgage. That's a bit of a new model. Have you thought or experienced anything with this?
We have not quite. I mean, we have some real estate ads on the website. This is more about monetizing the web space, but we don't go any further than that. Coming back to the question about Check24 and municipal markets, it's a real question because we
don't have a Check24 in
we
France.
are the Check24 on the French
You are
market,
the Check24.
in a way.
Same for us.
But it's a real question, which is if they really want to go deep into some verticals,
vertical
exactly.
versus one-stop shop.
Which is why we went from vertical to horizontal. That's why we went from mortgage brokerage to being the comparison site across products.
Exactly.
The one thing that we have not done, which I think is a really quick question, which is do you go into non-financial products?
Yes.
Do you go into utilities? Do you go into broadband? Do you go into
Or
travel and shopping?
consumer goods.
Exactly. It's a real question. I think it depends on the markets. In some markets, people are going to see you as being legitimate in doing so. In some of the markets, people are going to see you as not being legitimate. I think this is a real question.
So how many providers are there? I mean, your service, I think, will benefit from the fragmentation of the providers. Now, with the European Union, banks are offering mortgages cross-country. Maybe we start with Michael. How many different mortgage providers you have who are really trying to compete aggressively for the customer?
Yeah, we have over 400 on the platform, and hardly any from.
They're not just for the fun of it there.
No, and not from other countries. So it's still
Not
very,
from other countries.
No, it's a very local market still. So France has different providers, and Italy also has different ones.
How is it in Turkey? How many you have on the platform?
In Turkey, it's very concentrated, actually. We total banks that give out mortgages is 20, and we have 17 of them on the platform.
Right.
So.
And in France?
We have 120 banks, and we pretty much have all of them. And on the insurance side, you would have something like 30 or 40 players.
And in Italy?
We work with 19 out of the top 20 banks, and there is no cross-border lending. We have some subsidiaries of foreign banks, and we would like to have more competition in some segments.
Mortgage provider, if you hear us here, call Marco. And Tom, how is it in Holland? How many providers do you have?
We have the whole market, so all the providers. But to answer your question about, let's say, people from abroad entering the market, it's done in the Netherlands, but it's more on the back side. So they are, let's say, funding is coming in, and they, because it's a broker market, they are funding certain labels, so non-banking labels. So there is already this influence. So let's say from the capital market in London, Goldman supplies money for mortgages which are supplied in the Netherlands. So that's the way it works.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I think this is very interesting to see. I thought that at some point maybe the vertical players are losing market share, but it seems that you are absolutely gaining and build very, very big businesses in every country. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.